The story begins with a grand gala, a world dripping with opulence and power. The chandeliers shimmer like liquid crystal, casting refracted light across the elegant gowns and tailored tuxedos of the city's elite. Amelia Carter moves through this scene with a kind of mechanical grace, her every step watched, judged, and admired by those around her. Reporters flash cameras, capturing her perfect smile, while wealthy businessmen lean in with hollow compliments, each motivated by what she represents, a gateway to influence and fortune. Yet beneath the glamour, Amelia feels a hollow ache. She has inherited a life of privilege, fame, and expectation, but it is a gilded cage. Her eyes, though framed by flawless makeup, betray fatigue and an unspoken yearning for something authentic. In this world, people see only her wealth and status, not her thoughts or desires. The contrast between the dazzling environment and her internal exhaustion is stark, setting the stage for the reader to understand her loneliness despite constant attention. Every interaction feels transactional. She is constantly performing, smiling for cameras and small talk, never allowing herself to exist simply as Amelia Carter. The gala, meant to celebrate her family's legacy, becomes a suffocating reminder of how isolated she is within her own life. This opening scene establishes the tension between appearance and reality, immediately engaging the reader with the question of who Amelia truly is beyond her public persona. After the gala, Amelia escapes the suffocating spotlight to a different world entirely, the downtown community art center. Here, she sheds the silk gowns and designer heels for plain jeans and a simple sweater. Blending seamlessly into the background, she adopts the name Mia, and for the first time, she can engage with life without scrutiny. The art center is filled with vibrant murals, laughter, and the chaotic energy of children discovering their creativity. Amelia thrives in this environment, guiding paintbrushes, offering encouragement, and listening to the stories of kids who see her as nothing more than a caring volunteer. Unlike the gala, interactions here are genuine. Her worth isn't measured in dollars or social status, but in her presence and the time she dedicates. It's a stark contrast to her life of privilege, highlighting her desire to connect with people who see her humanity, not her wealth. When she meets Daniel Brooks, a struggling architect who teaches at the center, the dynamic shifts. He treats her like any other colleague, teasing her about her paint skills and joking about the chaos of supervising energetic children. There is no hidden agenda, no fascination with her family name, just respect, humor, and human connection. Through Daniel, Amelia experiences a sense of being truly seen for the first time, reinforcing the emotional core of the story. Her struggle to balance a life defined by expectation with a longing for authenticity. The fragile balance of Amelia's dual life is shattered when a tabloid photographer spots her leaving the art center in her modest attire. The resulting headline sensationalize her volunteer work as slumming it, framing her kindness as a gimmick or an escape from her privileged life. This incident thrusts Amelia into a maelstrom of external scrutiny and internal conflict. On one hand, she is exposed to public judgment for simply being herself, which amplifies her fear that no one can love her genuinely. On the other hand, she grapples with the possibility that her secret life, a rare space where she feels authentic, might be compromised. This collision of worlds creates a compelling tension that propels the narrative forward. Can Amelia maintain the freedom and genuine human connection she's found at the art center while managing the pressures of her inherited identity? The tabloid's intrusion also introduces stakes for her budding relationship with Daniel, as the revelation threatens to distort his perception of her. and challenge the trust they are beginning to build. This opening conflict lays the foundation for the central question of the story: whether Amelia can reconcile her public persona with her private desires, and ensures readers are invested in both her internal and external journey from the very first pages. Amelia Carter grew up under the unrelenting glare of public scrutiny. Her father, Richard Carter, a formidable real estate tycoon, ruled the family with a rigid, business-first mentality, treating Amelia less like a daughter and more like a strategic asset in his empire. From a young age, she was groomed for appearances, expected to smile for cameras, attend high-profile events, and maintain the perfect image of wealth and sophistication. The sudden death of her mother left a void not easily filled. Richard's cold, pragmatic parenting only deepened Amelia's sense of isolation. Affection was conditional, often contingent upon her adherence to the family's ambitious expectations. Despite inheriting a life of luxury, Amelia experienced profound loneliness. Her opulent surroundings a stark contrast to the emotional neglect she endured. She longed for genuine human connection, but had grown wary, understanding that most interactions were transactional. Her upbringing fostered a strong sense of discipline, intelligence, and grace, but at the cost of trust and intimacy. These formative experiences shaped Amelia's present-day choices, motivating her desire to create a space outside her family's influence, where she could be valued for herself rather than her social status. The tension between her public persona and private yearning establishes the emotional stakes, revealing why her secret life at the art center feels not only liberating, but essential to her identity. Amelia's inner world, rich with compassion, yet shadowed by insecurity, drives her dual existence, setting the stage for both conflict and growth as she navigates relationships built on authenticity versus those dictated by power and wealth. In stark contrast to Amelia, Daniel Brooks' upbringing was defined by scarcity, determination, and resilience. Raised by a single mother who worked tirelessly to provide for him, Daniel learned the value of hard work, empathy, and building relationships grounded in sincerity. His father abandoned the family to chase financial gain, leaving Daniel with a lingering resentment toward materialism and superficial status. Despite these challenges, Daniel's talent as an architect and his creativity allowed him to excel, though he often went unnoticed in formal settings, overshadowed by wealthier peers. This shaped his core belief: meaningful connections matter far more than societal recognition or monetary success. His volunteer work at the Community Arts Center embodies this philosophy, blending mentorship, art, and human engagement in a way that emphasizes substance over appearance. Meeting Amelia, unaware of her social stature, Daniel interacts with her on equal footing, treating her as a peer rather than a celebrity or heiress. This dynamic is intoxicating for Amelia, who is unused to being seen as a person rather than a commodity. Daniel's grounded nature and gentle teasing challenge Amelia's guardedness, opening a doorway to trust and emotional intimacy. His backstory contrasts sharply with Amelia's privilege, highlighting the narrative's thematic exploration of authenticity versus artifice, while foreshadowing both tension and romantic potential as the story unfolds. Daniel's perspective also introduces stakes for Amelia. The deeper their bond grows, the more perilous it becomes to hide her true identity, creating an internal struggle that will drive character development. Amelia's world is further complicated by a carefully constructed supporting cast, each shaping her life in distinct ways. Richard Carter, her father, is a calculating patriarch who views Amelia as a strategic instrument for expanding the family empire, indifferent to her emotional needs. Grace Carter, her cousin, embodies envy and ambition, subtly scheming to outshine Amelia and secure influence within the family's social and business spheres. Meanwhile, Sophia Reyes, Amelia's closest confidant, is the anchor who knows the truth about Amelia's double life. Sophia's loyalty allows Amelia to navigate her secret world, offering advice, encouragement, and occasionally comic relief amid high-stakes tension. In the present setup, Amelia balances her dual existence, the high society obligations demanded by her family, and the ordinary life she cherishes at the art center. Time spent with Danielle deepens her emotional awakening, stirring feelings she has long suppressed, but she remains cautious, fearing the repercussions of revealing her true identity. This duality fuels both internal and external conflict. The threat of exposure looms, the family's influence presses down, and the budding romantic tension with Daniel introduces stakes tied to trust, honesty, and vulnerability. The interplay of these relationships establishes the story's central dramatic tension, framing Amelia's journey as not only a quest for love, but also a struggle to reconcile her inherited world with her authentic self, setting the stage for growth, confrontation, and emotional payoff. The story reaches a pivotal turning point when Daniel, in a quiet moment away from the chaos of the art center, admits the depth of his feelings for Amelia. His voice is steady but vulnerable, carrying the weight of sincerity. "I don't care if you're rich or poor. I just want someone real." For Amelia, these words are both intoxicating and terrifying. She has spent her life behind layers of expectations, guarded by a persona carefully constructed to shield her from the transactional nature of her world. Daniel's confession challenges every instinct she has honed to survive the pressures of her family and public life. The desire to be truthful conflicts sharply with the fear of rejection. Revealing her true identity risks destroying the fragile connection she has worked so hard to nurture, yet remaining in secrecy feels equally unsustainable. As her feelings for Daniel deepen, this moment amplifies Amelia's internal struggle, her yearning for authentic love versus the consequences of exposing the truth. It is not merely a romantic dilemma. It symbolizes the broader tension between her dual lives and foreshadows the complications that arise when those worlds inevitably collide. The reader is drawn into this intimate moment, feeling the weight of Amelia's choices and the stakes involved, as the narrative transitions from internal longing to the external pressures that threaten to shatter her carefully maintained balance. The tension escalates when Amelia returns to the Carter estate, the heart of her public, scrutinized life. Here, Richard Carter asserts his authority in a manner both commanding and oppressive, announcing his plan to arrange a marriage alliance with the son of a wealthy political family, a union driven purely by strategy and status. The announcement, intended to display Amelia as a compliant heiress, instead sparks rebellion. In a moment of impulsive courage, she interrupts her father, blurting out that she is already seeing someone. This declaration is not merely about romantic preference, but a direct challenge to her father's control. Amelia's voice, tinged with defiance, cuts through the grandiose formal atmosphere of the estate, signaling her growing willingness to assert agency over her life. The family's shocked reactions underscore the magnitude of her act, highlighting the contrast between the constricting world of wealth and the freedom she experiences outside it. This catalyst sets in motion the collision of her two worlds, escalating the narrative from emotional tension to high-stakes drama. Amelia's rebellion is both personal and symbolic, demonstrating a refusal to be reduced to an instrument of wealth, while simultaneously intensifying the risks to her relationship with Daniel, whose understanding of her world remains incomplete. The stakes reach a fever pitch when Amelia brings Daniel to the Carter estate, introducing him as her companion without revealing the truth of her social standing. Daniel, expecting a modest dinner or casual introduction, is blindsided by the mansion's opulence, the gleaming chandeliers, and the subtle yet sharp judgments of the Carter family. Richard, perceiving an opportunity to assert dominance, ridicules Daniel, scrutinizing him with the condescension of a man accustomed to power. Grace, fueled by envy and malice, amplifies the humiliation, making pointed comments that question Daniel's worth and suitability. The collision of worlds, Amelia's secret, humble life, and the elite universe she is forced to navigate, shatters the fragile equilibrium she has tried to maintain. Daniel, feeling deceived and hurt, realizes that Amelia has withheld crucial truth about herself, and in his anger, he lashes out, "You're just like the rest, hiding behind money." This explosive confrontation transforms private tension into overt conflict, escalating both emotional and narrative stakes. The betrayal is twofold. Daniel feels deceived in love, while Amelia confronts the consequences of living a double life. This moment crystallizes the story's central dilemma, forcing both characters to face the implications of secrecy, trust, and authenticity, setting the stage for the ensuing journey of reconciliation, self-discovery, and confrontation with societal expectations. Following the explosive confrontation at the Carter estate, Amelia is left reeling, desperate to repair the damage caused by her secrecy and impulsive decisions. She reaches out to Daniel repeatedly, leaving messages and attempting to explain that her deception was never intended to manipulate or hurt him. Yet Daniel, wounded by both pride and past experiences of abandonment, refuses to answer her calls, his mind replaying the humiliation he suffered in the mansion. He interprets Amelia's actions through the lens of betrayal rather than love. Daniel's emotional armor, built over years of hardship and distrust in wealthy circles, prevents him from seeing the nuance of Amelia's situation. For her, the silence is crushing. Every unanswered call and ignored message magnifies her guilt and fear that she may have destroyed the one genuine connection she has ever had. This emotional fracture introduces a period of tension that is both internal and relational. Amelia's inner turmoil intensifies as she questions her own judgment, her ability to trust, and whether the life she has constructed, balancing family expectations and personal desires, is sustainable. The reader is drawn into the vulnerability of both characters, witnessing how a single act of omission can ripple outward, affecting trust, love, and identity. This stage sets the groundwork for the rising emotional stakes, as Amelia's determination to make amends conflicts with the barriers created by Daniel's pain and pride, creating a poignant exploration of misunderstanding and human fragility. As if personal heartbreak weren't enough, the tabloid press quickly capitalizes on the situation. Paparazzi photos of Amelia and Daniel together leak, sparking a frenzy of speculation and gossip. Headlines insinuate that Daniel, previously known as a diligent but unremarkable architect, is a gold digger, attempting to exploit Amelia's wealth. The public scrutiny begins to seep into his professional life. Clients cancel contracts, colleagues exchange hushed remarks, and his reputation suffers under the weight of insinuation. Daniel, who has worked tirelessly to prove his worth on merit rather than social connections, experiences a profound sense of injustice and humiliation. The fallout extends beyond career and public perception, It becomes a reflection of his lifelong struggle against superficial judgment. Meanwhile, Amelia watches the chaos unfold helplessly, aware that her choices, though motivated by authenticity and love, have inadvertently endangered Daniel. The pressure from the outside world amplifies their emotional conflict, creating a layered tension. The private heartbreak intersects with public scrutiny, making reconciliation not only a matter of mending trust, but also navigating the judgment and interference of society. This external pressure reinforces the story's thematic focus on authenticity versus appearances, and how societal expectations can distort relationships built on sincerity. Amelia's confrontation with her father further complicates matters. Richard Carter, embodying control and pragmatism, dismisses the emotional stakes entirely, asserting coldly, "Love doesn't matter, control does." His words underline the harsh reality of her world, where personal desires are secondary to family strategy and societal image. Simultaneously, Grace covertly exacerbates the situation by leaking additional stories to the press, deliberately tarnishing Amelia's reputation and intensifying her sense of isolation. Amelia finds herself caught between two impossible choices: fighting for Daniel, the one person who has seen her true self, or submitting to her father's authority to preserve social standing and family expectations. Daniel, on the other hand, is wrestling with his own demons: humiliation, financial instability, and the lingering shadow of his father's mistakes. His pride and sense of integrity prevent him from reconciling with Amelia too quickly, creating a stalemate fueled by mutual misunderstanding and external pressures. The emotional conflict reaches its apex as both characters confront their limitations, vulnerabilities, and the societal forces conspiring against them. Their isolation becomes not just physical but emotional, setting the stage for the eventual resolution. This stage of rising tension underscores the narrative's central themes of trust, authenticity, and the courage required to confront both personal and social barriers in pursuit of love and self-determination. Amelia reaches a breaking point after months of secrecy, betrayal, and escalating pressure. Through her own investigation and the guidance of Sophia, her loyal confidante, she uncovers the full extent of Grace's machinations. Grace, driven by jealousy and ambition, has systematically sabotaged both Amelia and Daniel, feeding false stories to tabloids, manipulating public perception, and even bribing associates to undermine Daniel's reputation and career. The revelation hits Amelia with a mix of anger, betrayal, and clarity. She realizes that the obstacles in her life were not merely the result of societal pressures or misunderstandings, but a deliberate campaign orchestrated by someone close to her. The discovery crystallizes the duality of her struggle. She is not only fighting to protect her love for Daniel, but also reclaiming control over her life and identity from the toxic influence of her family. This breaking point serves as a catalyst for transformation, shifting Amelia from reactive frustration to proactive courage. Her inner turmoil, once dominated by fear of rejection and public judgment, is replaced with a resolute determination to confront the injustices she and Daniel have suffered. The narrative tension escalates as Amelia prepares to act, signaling to the audience that the story is approaching a critical climax, where private grievances will intersect with public exposure, and where personal bravery will confront entrenched power and deception. Amelia seizes an opportunity at the Carter family's high-profile charity gala, a glittering event that symbolizes the very world that has constrained her freedom. Without prior announcement, she steps onto the stage, commanding attention from cameras, socialites, and her father. The contrast between her poised, composed exterior and the raw intensity of her words amplifies the shock and drama. She publicly exposes Grace's betrayals, detailing the deliberate smear campaigns and manipulations that have threatened both her personal life and Daniel's career. In the same breath, she denounces her father's controlling nature, refusing to allow love, ambition, or personal freedom to be dictated by his rigid standards. Amelia's declaration to step away from the family empire is both literal and symbolic. She is renouncing the cage of inherited privilege that has dictated every choice of her life, asserting agency over her identity, relationships, and future. The audience, including media, socialites, and family members, is stunned. Cameras capture every word, amplifying the impact of her stand against deception, control, and elitism. The confrontation that transforms Amelia from a reactive character into a figure of empowerment, her courage reshaping the narrative landscape and redefining the stakes for all involved. This scene blends public spectacle with intimate emotional truth, creating a dramatic apex that resonates on multiple levels: personal, relational, and societal. As Amelia speaks, Daniel watches from the crowd, initially tense and uncertain, bracing for the spectacle he fears may be performative. However, he quickly realizes that Amelia's courage is not about attention, revenge, or social posturing. It is about freedom, authenticity, and the reclamation of her life. For the first time, Daniel sees her vulnerability laid bare. The fear, the pressure, and the emotional risks she has carried silently. The twist lies not in the exposure of deception alone, but in the profound shift in Daniel's perception of Amelia. Her actions demonstrate self-empowerment and honesty in the face of overwhelming societal and familial constraints. This revelation breaks down the remaining barriers between them, allowing Daniel to recognize that Amelia's love is genuine, informed by vulnerability rather than obligation or social expectation. The audience witnesses a dual catharsis. Amelia achieves liberation from the toxic forces constraining her, and Daniel reconciles his doubts, understanding that their connection is grounded in truth and shared values. This emotional twist intensifies the climax, providing both a satisfying narrative payoff and a deeper exploration of themes such as courage, authenticity, and the transformative power of honesty, setting the stage for resolution, reconciliation, and the forging of a future defined by mutual trust rather than external pressures. In the aftermath of the climactic confrontation, Amelia begins the deliberate process of reclaiming her life on her own terms. She severs ties with her father, recognizing that continued attachment to the Carter Empire only perpetuates emotional oppression and public scrutiny. This break is not merely symbolic. It represents Amelia's conscious decision to prioritize her values, autonomy, and emotional well-being over inherited expectations. With her wealth and influence now fully under her control, she establishes an independent foundation dedicated to causes she genuinely believes in, ranging from supporting underprivileged youth in the arts to funding community initiatives that empower local talent. These actions allow Amelia to channel her privilege into meaningful impact, transforming what was once a gilded cage into a vehicle for positive change. The foundation becomes a tangible representation of her personal growth, demonstrating that wealth and power can be wielded with empathy and integrity. Through this process, Amelia experiences both liberation and fulfillment. She is no longer performing for society or her family. She is creating something authentic that aligns with her passions and ideals. This step also reflects a broader narrative theme. Empowerment arises not only from confrontation and rebellion, but also from intentional action that reshapes one's world in alignment with personal truth. Amelia's journey toward independence underscores her evolution from a passive heiress bound by expectation into a proactive architect of her own destiny, inspiring both readers and the characters around her to value authenticity, courage, and principled action. Parallel to Amelia's transformation, Daniel embarks on his own path of redemption and professional rebuilding. Offered a high-paying contract from the Carter name as a form of compensation for the public fallout he endured, Daniel initially wrestles with temptation. Accepting the offer would provide immediate financial security and prestige, yet it would also compromise his principles and diminish the hard work he has poured into his career. Choosing integrity over convenience, Daniel declines the contract, opting instead to rebuild his career on merit, reputation, and the quality of his work. This decision reinforces his foundational values: authentic relationships, hard-earned success, and professional self-respect. Rebuilding is not easy. He faces challenges, financial uncertainty, and the lingering effects of public judgment. Yet each step forward solidifies his confidence, resilience, and independence. His journey mirrors Amelia's in many ways. Both are disentangling themselves from external forces that sought to define or control them. The parallel arcs highlight a thematic resonance. True empowerment requires sacrifice, perseverance, and a commitment to one's principles. Daniel's redemption is not a sudden resolution, but a gradual reclamation of agency, illustrating the narrative's focus on the slow, realistic process of personal and professional restoration. Amelia and Daniel's reconciliation unfolds gradually, emphasizing the intimacy and authenticity of rebuilding trust rather than relying on grand gestures or dramatic declarations. Amelia visits Daniel's modest studio, observing his dedication to architecture and creativity, and appreciating the way he has rebuilt his life on his own terms. In turn, Daniel volunteers alongside Amelia at the Art Center, engaging with children and seeing the real impact of her independent foundation. These shared experiences become the foundation for renewed intimacy, as they bond over mutual respect, vulnerability, and collaboration rather than superficial displays of affection. Small gestures, a shared laugh while supervising a mural, quiet conversations about goals and values, moments of understanding when silence suffices, rebuild the connection piece by piece. Through these interactions, both characters recognize that love is strengthened not by wealth, fame, or external validation, but by empathy, patience, and authentic shared experiences. Their reconciliation illustrates the narrative's ultimate message. Empowerment and fulfillment emerge when individuals act with integrity, embrace vulnerability, and cultivate relationships rooted in honesty. By the arc's conclusion, Amelia and Daniel are no longer defined by societal pressures or familial expectations. Instead, they move forward as equals, partners in life and purpose, united by trust, shared values, and the courage to live authentically in a world that once sought to constrain them. Months after the high-stakes turmoil that dominated Amelia's life, she has settled into a simpler, more intentional existence, no longer constrained by her father's expectations or the glare of tabloid cameras. Amelia now lives in her own modest apartment, a space that reflects her personality, values, and autonomy. The quiet of her surroundings symbolizes the emotional freedom she has fought to achieve, contrasting sharply with the opulence and scrutiny of her former life. One morning, Amelia receives transformative news. Her independent foundation has successfully funded 100 scholarships for underprivileged students. This milestone is more than a professional achievement. It represents the tangible impact of her efforts and the alignment of her wealth with her authentic values. The knowledge that her actions are enabling others to pursue education and creativity brings a profound sense of fulfillment. The scholarships are a culmination of her journey toward empowerment, signaling that she no longer needs approval, recognition, or influence to feel validated. Instead, her worth is measured by the positive change she can create in the world. The quiet satisfaction she experiences in this moment underscores the theme of self-realization. Amelia has navigated betrayal, family pressure, and personal doubt to arrive at a place where her choices, rather than inheritance, define her life. This quiet closure establishes a reflective, emotionally resonant tone, emphasizing the reward of perseverance, courage, and integrity. It is a moment of internal triumph, allowing Amelia to experience pride and contentment rooted in purpose rather than external validation. Into this quiet life, Daniel re-enters, carrying not gifts, jewelry, or material symbols of success, but blueprints for a community school. His presence is understated yet profoundly significant, reflecting his own journey of rebuilding and dedication to authenticity. Daniel approaches Amelia with a soft, deliberate acknowledgement of their shared past and the growth they have each achieved independently. This time, we build it together, he says, signaling both reconciliation and collaboration. The simplicity of his words encapsulates the emotional maturity they have both cultivated. Love is no longer performative or tied to wealth, but grounded in trust, mutual respect, and shared purpose. The community school becomes a metaphor for their relationship, a project that requires commitment, teamwork, and patience, reflecting the values they have learned through hardship. In this moment, the focus shifts from romantic grandiosity to practical, meaningful partnership. They are not merely lovers reconnecting. They are collaborators building something enduring and beneficial to others. This emotional beat emphasizes that true fulfillment comes from authentic connection and shared endeavors, rather than superficial symbols of status or affection. Daniel's gesture reinforces the theme of reciprocity in love and life. Just as Amelia has invested in the lives of others through her foundation, Daniel now contributes not only to their shared vision, but also to the rebuilding of trust and emotional intimacy between them. The narrative reaches its serene, uplifting close as Amelia and Daniel step into the half-built community center, their hands streaked with paint, laughing quietly together. The scene is intimate and grounded, devoid of the grandeur, cameras, and societal pressures that once dictated their lives. This closing image is deeply symbolic. The physical act of building mirrors their emotional journey, representing the labor, care, and patience required to construct not just a space for others, but a life together built on choice, equality, and authenticity. Their laughter, unencumbered by expectation, signifies the liberation they have both achieved. Freedom from familial control, societal scrutiny, and personal insecurities. The absence of material luxury highlights the contrast between their former world of wealth-driven constraint and the present reality of intentional living. By focusing on shared effort and simple joy, the final moment communicates that love and fulfillment are cultivated through mutual respect, collaboration, and meaningful action, rather than wealth or status. It is a quiet, emotionally satisfying conclusion that reinforces the story's central themes. empowerment, integrity, and the transformative power of authenticity. The narrative closes with hope, illustrating that personal freedom and purposeful connection are not only attainable, but infinitely rewarding when chosen over superficial expectations. This scene leaves readers with a lasting impression of resilience, love, and the beauty of a life rebuilt on one's own terms.